Welcome to Future Customer Value, where global thought leaders share their career-defining moments.
Welcome to the next episode of Future Customer Value. Got an awesome guest on today, Sabina Pons. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So some quick context for you who's listening. Sabina and I met along with her partner, Amelia, at a webinar a couple months ago hosted by CS Angel, which is an awesome webinar about mothers in tech. And Sabina and Amelia have written a book. We'll talk about that through the context of the show. And it was a really wonderful way to meet someone. And I think since then, Sabina, we got to know each other pretty well. So it's been awesome having you in the network, and glad that we can have a conversation today.
That's a special topic near and dear to my heart, both customer success and women in tech, and then investing in customer success companies.
Absolutely. And I think your career speaks very well to that, which we will dive into in just a second. So if you don't know Sabina, she's got a really cool story starting off in the SaaS world at a organization called Guthy-Renker, which was actually in the marketing, D2C marketing world, right? And it's always fun for me to see folks who've come into the post-sales world, who have an entrepreneurial spirit like yourself, who were in a totally orthogonal industry, right? And then happened to have come into the software world. So Sabina started off her career in the IT department at Guthy-Renker, moved around and had some great mentors along the way who helped enrich her career in that world, and eventually moved into the SaaS world at Mavenlink, which is a name where many of us are familiar with, in 2016, all in California and the OC and LA world of Cali. And at Mavenlink was responsible for the post-sales renewal journey, commercials, everything revenue. And there's some surprises there, I think, that you weren't expecting when you first joined, but we'll dive into that. And after spending a number of years at Mavenlink, Sabina tapped back into her entrepreneurial spirit and started Growth Molecules with Amelia Danzica, who has come on the show prior. And that's where you are currently as one of the partners at Growth Molecules. So anything you'd want to add to that before we dive into your story here?
That's a great summary. You did great.
All righty.
This podcast is brought to you by Foresight, a full-service value realization platform designed to help you unlock growth in every single account. For more information on Foresight, please email them at info@gainforesight.co. That is info@gainforesight.co. And they'll be in touch.
Well, let's start at your world at Guthy-Renker back in the days of IT and D2C marketing agency. You know, what was really fascinating to me during the pre-chat was the personal environment that was surrounding this for you, and where you were on a human level, right? Transitioning into this new career. And so paint the picture for us of where were you and what was life like for you and your family back in that moment in 2008 financial crisis, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, it was a really rough time, and one of a lot of self-reflection, digging deep, and resilience. Both my husband and I, thankfully, had not yet had children, so it was our own mouths to worry about feeding, but we had worked in the advertising industry. I was primarily working on a residential home builder account with a national omnicom agency. Because of the housing crisis and then the loan crisis, the financial crisis that ensued shortly thereafter, me and a lot of my colleagues got laid off. And my husband did as well from his marketing job and at another company. And it took us quite some time to find new jobs. We had just bought our first condo. We had scraped the pennies together to make that happen. And when you're laid off, hopefully it's never happened to you, it feels like you're getting dumped. And the worst part is it's not on your own terms. You're not ending the relationship, they are. And then you're trying to figure out how you're going to make ends meet. We didn't have a lot of savings because we just finished and or embarking on grad school days and student loan payback. So it was a double whammy of new mortgage that we'd never had mortgage payment before, student loans, and now layoff.
My goodness.
So we made it last as long as we could, but we had to figure out another path. We had to reinvent ourselves.
Wow. And along the way, you had met some folks who really opened up opportunities for you, especially a mentor there. So tell us about one of the women in your life at that point at Guthy-Renker, and what happened to get you to a new state of empowerment, right? And feeling that, hey, all this stuff's going around me, but there's still great people who can help and take us to the next stage of where we need to be.
It was pretty amazing to feel seen and validated and empowered. Even getting into my job at Guthy-Renker, having been in an ad agency on the client services side, I applied for a job in an IT department at a company I'd frankly never heard of, even though the many brands are well known, like Proactive Skincare, When Hair Care, and many others. So even that alone was a moment of vulnerability for me. Thankfully, somebody saw something in me and gave me a chance and realized the skills translated. From there, I got to work on many projects, and I had a lot of leaders, male and otherwise, that helped me understand some of the technologically complex concepts. I had never had experience with things like credit card recycling. Like, what does dunning even mean when we're trying to capture payments repeatedly? What does PCI security compliance mean for payment card capture? How about shipping, multi-node shipping? How do we think about products that can ship via the air versus ground only because of the formulation? For example, for proactive, if there's a certain, a toner or something for the skin, certain countries don't allow certain products. So how do you have different formulations? And then another mind-boggling one for me was the copious amounts of data that were required, not only on the customer contact level for cross-selling, but also on what they call a bill of materials. So if there's a kit and has customizations in it, if it's makeup, for example, the hero product and all the ancillary things, it's the foundation and maybe the lipstick, etc. Who gets what and at what interval? What payment terms do they enter the subscription on? So many, many complex things. So I had great leaders to get me to a certain point. I think I was a manager though for about 7 years. And I was working on this large transformational project, couple multi-million-dollar project of data migration from an old system to a new system. Wow. And a leader in another company, or in another division of the company, got to work with this project cross-functionally. And she noticed me in a way that I hadn't been noticed before and recruited me to come join her. And unbeknownst to me, she had been asked by the C-suite and the company founders to go start a new division and wanted me to be on her team.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it like it was yesterday. My son had just had his tonsils removed. We were in the children's ward overnight because he was 2. So they keep you overnight when you're that little. And she says, I know you're out right now with your family. That's incredibly important. But I have some really good news for you. Do you have a minute to step aside? And so I said, sure, no problem. I went to the little lounge there, the Ronald McDonald Lounge, the hospital, which is a whole other layer of emotions for why other parents are there for serious treatments for cancer and things like that. So I'm there for tonsils, feeling guilty that I'm there just for tonsils for my son, having those removed. And I get this call and she says, hey, Sabina, congratulations, but I formally got the approval to bring you over and you're getting a $40,000 raise. I looked at your comp with HR. You are way, way under market. Wow. And I want to get you up to where you should be. So I went from 100K to 140K. And I just was like, as my grandmother would say, I'm the cat's meow. I felt so proud. And of course, like that's a lot of money, yes. But within the tech world, you start to realize like that's, it's a different ball game altogether. So it was really special. I felt, like I said, validated and seen and a little bit embarrassed that I hadn't known my worth before, but excited for the adventure and the opportunity to partner with this mentor.
That's incredible. And I feel as you're talking about all the different industries you have to learn about proactive and, the Malibu Pilates, skincare, all these different areas, you have to really understand and be more empathetic to the customer. What are they trying to do with your solution and your services, but also having the support internally who understands you. So I feel like I'm feeling empowered listening to that. And I think that's going to help folks realize that if you find the people on your side who are on the same team as you, then even the darkest moments, you can really rise to the next occasion, which is awesome. So let's take it a step forward here. When you took those experiences and serendipitously found yourself at another company called MavenLink in the tech world, professional services automation, very successful large company. And so talk to us about that shift of how you ended up in the tech world and the post-sales world, customer success. And then I have a couple of questions for you that actually relate to customer success and customer value.
Of course. The getting into the IT department and working my way up just opened up this hunger that I didn't know I had. I never in a million years thought I would be technologically savvy. And to clarify, that doesn't mean I'm going to, rip apart and build my Mac back up, my Mac Pro. What is it called? Mac Pro?
MacBook Pro. Yeah,
MacBook Pro. Clearly, I'm demonstrating the case in point here. However, the ability to be a systems thinker and to understand the implications of things like the butterfly effect, if you do something here, it's going to affect over here. And that just really awakened a hunger that I didn't know I had, and a passion for understanding and exploring what's more. Again, I knew I had these customer-centric skills and the ability to be the liaison between internal teams and external teams. did that in multiple roles in my career and wanted to take that further. I also was traveling and commuting about 62 miles a day, where from Orange County to Santa Monica and Los Angeles, as the crow flies, it's a piece of cake. But with LA traffic, it was about 2 hours each way.
Oh my
I
goodness.
tried all different things. Tried leaving at 4 a.m. I tried leaving, later. I tried the train. I missed my train home one night. I tried hanging out and going to the gym up there afterwards to miss the traffic. And then I'd get home at 9 and to be eating late at night, pretty much undoing the good work I did at the gym.
Right.
So after all that, I graciously accepted a role in my hometown area in Irvine and got in at MavenLink as the director of customer success.
Wow. And how was that? So did you know anything about customer success at that moment? What was that transition like for you, going from the IT world, digital services agency, into now, pure play SaaS?
It was a bit of an eye-opener as well, but it was an easier transition than it was going from advertising to the DTC space and IT. Because of that last leg of my journey within Guthrie Ranker was building out a new division that was packaging up what we had built ourselves internally, what we say from click to ship, and the command center for customer support and everything in between. We packaged that service offering and technological application offering up to third-party companies. And so I essentially built that relationship structure, built the account management structure, the sales, the statement of work to help get onboarding, data migration, everything. So I really sort of had a flavor for that before I jumped into that role. And I think that's what gave me the skill set and the ability to do so.
Got it. And so in this role, when running customer success, you had all the commercials and contract renewals, and you were telling me in the pre-chat that you're not expecting that. That was something new that happened. So what was that? What was that moment when what were you expecting? And then what did your boss tell you had to do?
Day one. So mind you, I accepted my offer, signed my papers, and I had 3 weeks in between. So in that 3 weeks, I fit in a couple of vacations, got all ready. Day one, he calls me, he's on the road for a work trip, and says, "Hey, Sabina, some things have changed. We met with our board and we're going to take the recommendation to align who owns renewals and expansion, the actual commercial activities, the contracting, the negotiations, everything. And that was going to be now my responsibility." At the time, we were 14 million in recurring revenue, and we had about maybe only 50 renewals that year that were due. But as time went on and we sold more, and the different contracts, of course, were coming up from years past, as we first started selling multi-year contracts, it quickly became 150 contracts and more a year.
Wow.
And the idea of figuring in those workflows into a world where customer journey hadn't literally even been mapped out yet was pretty daunting and unexpected. And then, of course, I was like, do I have the right people? Do those people have the right skills? Do I have the right tools, the right visibility, the right predictability? And the answer was no, I had none of that. So I really started from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was how did you frame what you needed to learn? And what are the specific skills you need to acquire in that world, in that moment, with all this pressure, hyper growth going on? I think Goldman Sachs had, invested a bunch of money as well. So what did you have to do to up-level yourself as the plane was taking off and flying?
Many, many things. And it's funny you use the plane analogy. That's what my leadership had always said. We're flying the plane, we're fixing the engine and changing out the wings in flight. It was an analogy that really resonated because it was really accurate. I relied on a couple of things. Mentorship, again, critical. And so there was an advisor to our company who I got to have regular one-on-ones with. His name is Walt Weisner. He's a serial chief customer officer, now primarily board member. And he taught me about the concept of just pyramiding the team structure and the distribution of ARR and any other relevant customer segments to break it down into bite-sized pieces to be able to not only understand my team's skill set and where I could best be efficient, to also understand where our customers needed to be met first and foremost, and how we can make the biggest impact with the lean team that we had. So that was pretty key, having that. I also got on pretty quickly to the thought leadership that Gainsight had been promoting and publishing, and quickly learned who Nick Mehta was, and thought, oh my gosh, there's this community out there that is going through some of the same things. This whole thing of customer success is still a little new. People think it's a little loosey-goosey, granola, hippy-dippy, but it's a real thing to capture and keep the retention, or capture and keep the revenue that you've worked so hard to get. So the sense of community, the advisory ship, and also my own leadership within the company, we would have war rooms and we would try anything that sticks and try again and measure and iterate. And eventually the team was, when I got there, I think my team was 4. I had 4 people that I inherited that had been Jacks and Jills of all trades, very reactive, water from a fire hose, more on the support side, if you will, and got to help transform that. And in 4 years, my team was 104. We finally got the investment to do a tool like Gainsight and get predictive. And we won a Game Changer award for our scorecard that we built. And it was a completely different story where we were able to grow the gross dollar renewal rate to a 20% increase.
Oh,
And at
wow.
that time, our revenue was 100 million, and 72 million of that was my team's responsibility.
72 million out of 100 million and 20%
Mhm.
NDR. That's incredible. How many years did that take for you to get to that point from that day you started to, get
It was 4 years, and I
4
had a baby.
years?
Yeah, 4 years
4
and a baby in
years.
the middle of all of it.
4
Yeah,
years and a baby.
4 years and a baby.
Oh my goodness. And I think that's, for a lot of folks who are in our listener, we have a lot of folks who are in their mid-stage, VP level, director level, who are trying to get to the next stage, or also pivot and adapt to the market dynamics that they have and what's
Mhm.
changing for customers are more powered. There's a lot more choices out there, a lot more churn. And I think it's really compelling that you were in the midst of all this change, but you were able to figure out the strategy you needed to upskill yourself, lean on your resources, ask for help, and get the support that you needed in that moment, to rise to the occasion. And how, a question that we didn't talk about in the pre-chat, but I'm curious is, you mentioned that the board was going through a lot, right? Your boss was saying that, hey, we're growing so much. How did you get a seat at that table, in the leadership table? And what was that process like for you? Making sure your voice was heard, that your
Mhm.
perspectives were appreciated and resonating at the leadership and board level.
As a female in tech, a mom in tech, and as a first-time customer success leader in a company that hadn't had it before, the cards were definitely stacked against me. But I had there's 3 founders of Maven founders who were inclusive and encouraging, didn't necessarily know where to start themselves as it related to this whole CS thing. So we learned and we grew together. The key advice I would give to any leader in CS, first-time manager and upward, is to work really hard at establishing cross-functional allies. In our office in Irvine, when I first joined, we were still primarily in office. There was literally the great divide of the kitchen. And so sales and all the supporting roles there, like solutions consulting, services sales, sales enablement, even marketing, were all on one side of the kitchen. And then the other side of the kitchen was all of us on the services side, professional services, which was a big, meaty org based off of our product.
For sure.
We had the support team, customer success, and data integration team. So it was literally a very visible, but also emotional and psychological differentiation with
Wow.
lack of understanding about what the other teams really did,
Yeah.
what their victories were, what their pain points were, and how we could better work together to truly support that holistic customer experience. From the time that a prospect has a glimmer in their eye and your company might be part of that, you're just on the radar, to the time that they sign a contract or post-win, as I like to call it, instead of post-sale, post-win, and they're loving you so much that they'll be on stage with you at an industry conference talking about the case study and the victories that they had. That's the whole journey. And whether you're client facing, literally engaging with them on Zoom or in person, or you're in a more back of the house role supporting that customer facing function, we all have a role to play. And so part of that for me was really honing in on, all right, I was there for 3 months. I got in with my sales counterparts. We said, let's do an offsite together with just us. Now let's do an offsite with our teams and bring them together, break down barriers, do a better job of explaining what their day in the life looked like, how we could better support one another, and understand where frustrations have been historically and how do we break those down. So it was by really forging those bonds, but taking a minute to understand, to be human first. And also as leaders, we had to set the example. So we became good friends. I actually ended up going to my sales counterpart's wedding, and we're still friends today, and do a few things here and there together. And I think that's the biggest key. I had the same relationships with finance and accounting and HR and with marketing, where I literally met with every other VP every other week. We had one-on-ones together. We had regular Slacks, and we established this, hey, I'm an open book. I will be as honest. If you see my team members doing something that is not putting the company in the best light, not putting the customer first, not upholding the spirit of what we're all driving toward, I want to know about it. And also, if I'm not doing my best, or if I'm just not getting something, or I speak out of turn accidentally, whatever it is, I want to be coached. I want to be corrected. And I've been called out before, and it's painfully embarrassing, but at the same time, that's what made me better. And we got to hold each other accountable. So I think that was the key thing. And I hope every manager, director, VP, CCO tries to approach their roles with that same piece of vulnerability and openness.
So such a key piece where what you mentioned is resonates so deeply because everybody's got silos. They all have got their functional focus areas, and it's easy to get myopic and only focus on what we need to hit, the numbers we need to hit. But ultimately, the win, that post win, that glimmer in the customer's eye, I love how you put that, is not a customer success or sales or marketing prerogative. It is a company-wide prerogative. Everybody has the role to get that glimmer in the customer's eye, keep it, have that glimmer get better, come on stage, right? Deliver outsized value. That's going to yield that 20% NDR increase and more. And I think that's such it's a lot of organizations are trying to overcome that, but it's hard because of the silo, the focus on efficiency versus effectiveness, right? And it creates weird incentives. I know I've been in those shoes. So I want to come back to that when we talk about your role at Growth Molecules, because I understand that that's part of what you all are helping to diagnose in companies, is to break some of those, and what can you be doing cross-functionally to improve it. So we'll come back to that point, but I love the point about silos and breaking that. But before we move on, there's a really good story that you told me before about your boss at the time, Chris Scalia, I believe.
Scalia, yes.
Chris Scalia. Yeah. And this is when you were having your second child, and you were going through this hyper growth in life and in professional world. So talk to us about that moment and how you found another champion who was male this time, right? To support you through that moment.
Yeah, really special guy. Really lucky to have him as a boss and now as a friend. He had hired me, given me another chance to come in and then do these renewals and all these commercials. And I found out I was pregnant about 4 or 5 months into my job. And he was really sweet. And he says, well, Sabina, you know how babies are made, right? I was kind of mortified, but the reality was that I had medical assistance with my first. So I thought that was going to be the case with my second. And he was so kind to me and loving. And I was truly, truly terrified. And I told him early because I was really sick early. And I didn't want him to think I was just hungover all the time. So he was wonderful. He had kids of his own. His wife had gone through some troubles, and it was lovely. He supported me, encouraged me every step of the way. Yes, that's the law to protect one's job nowadays here in the United States and in California, but it is not a requirement by any means to have a boss that was encouraging and didn't start to exclude me psychologically or otherwise from meetings, from initiatives. So we kept that dialogue flowing. And legally, when I was on leave, I was not allowed to reply to email or anything, and my HR team made sure of that, even though I had major FOMO. So at my own will, and HR can plug their ears, I did have a couple meetups with my team or with Chris to just get a general sense of how things were going, what was going on. And the other key piece was I worked really hard before I left to almost build a succession plan. Not that I was going anywhere, but that's something we should all be doing as leaders anyway, right? If you're doing a good job as a leader, you're almost making yourself irrelevant, which is also really scary and vulnerable. That's really the mindset we should have. So I appointed my top performers on my team to be these team leads. And there was 3 of them that just stood out above the rest. I had one-on-ones, deep dives, and said, are you ready to take on some more? This is what I'm proposing. This is going to be your peer group. There's going to be 2 others of you. And I worked with Chris on that strategy. And between Chris and then 2 other peers of mine, the head of professional services and the then head of support, they had mentors and support in them. And it was great because they kicked butt. And when I got back, I got to almost reinvent myself based off of the work that they had done to keep the lights on. And more than that, shine them even brighter.
That's amazing. And I feel like when you are going through that, somebody's empowering you, you are able to empower your team, and everybody wins. The whole sea is rising together, right? And that's a really powerful anecdote and story there. Which it's very visual when you talk about it. I love it.
Thank you.
So when you're at Maven Link, you encountered a future business partner of yours, Amelia, and Growth Molecules is a consulting firm that had been brought into MavenLink to help improve processes. And you use an anecdote, which I liked, is when your kids listen to other people's parents more than your own. And in a similar way, teams listen to other people more than maybe their managers or their leaders. So talk to us about that transition now from MavenLink. You met Amelia. What was that world like? And then we'll dive into your world at Growth Molecules today.
Sure. I worked, as I mentioned, on that gap between sales and CS. And so we quickly and early recognized we needed to have not just a sales kickoff, we needed to have a customer success kickoff, and better yet, let's just do a revenue kickoff together. So with that, we would do workshops and bring in expert speakers. And one of them that we brought in was actually Winning by Design. For those of you who don't know Jocko, he's hilarious and he loves Red Bull. And on his team, he came in, and Amelia was part of his team at the time. She primarily focused on the CS enablement, where we worked together with sales and did everything together in the revenue architecture framework that they teach, and then peeled off and had our areas of specialty and a follow-on multi-month engagement. So I got to know Amelia well, and my team was great. I had the highest employee NPS in the company. I had the highest employee retention rates in the company, and my team was performing in terms of the OKRs and actual, they say, like scoreboard. They were doing really well with the financial metrics too. This was about empowering them with the essential skills that they perhaps were lacking confidence in, like having a crucial conversation with a CFO or procurement about a renewal, how to practice the ability to be human first and cut back the layers of what the customer really is asking for when they're stressed out and asking about a feature request. So it was incredible. And I also learned she was a mom to 3 and in the hustle and bustle of Silicon Valley. She had been one of the first employees at JobVite, had helped take WalkMe public, and many others. She was the chief customer officer at the CRM Copper, and then went into this consulting role. So I did what I'd never done before and formally asked if she would mentor me. I felt like I was asking someone out, what I imagine would be like asking someone out on a date, which I'd never done before, and was so nervous. I was like, what if she says no? What if she finds it funny and laughs at me? And thankfully she said yes. And we stayed in touch and had at a minimum monthly calls where I would talk to her about the question you asked. How did I get a seat at the table? How do I make my voice known in a way that's not off-putting or overbearing, but is rooted in value and in metrics, my performance metrics, and also who I am and what I bring to the table as a person. So she was really instrumental in that for me and giving me the confidence that, yes, I have a second baby. Yes, I'm reintegrating in a new, with a new flavor of my role within the company. I have to reinvent myself a little bit again. How do I do that? And so we stayed in touch for years, and my career continued to flourish, as did hers. And during COVID, she decided to go out on her own and create her own consulting business. This was in August of 2020 when Growth Molecules was founded. And she did it alone a little bit for a few months and said, this isn't fun. I like working with people. That's why I'm in customer success. And she gave me a call and asked me to join as a partner. And I said, thank you so much. I'm so flattered and honored. And I love where our relationship has grown, where you would trust me with that. But I like my 401k match, and I like my medical benefits, and I'm terrified to be an entrepreneur. So eventually I came around, and in April of 21, I joined her, and transparently, we hit $1 million in bookings in 1 year. It took off, and we figured out that we had found something. And then in year 2, we realized we needed to have some business coaching. And so we partnered with a company that had, they're more than mentor, they're business coaches, and help us understand, what is our ICP and what does our go-to-market strategy look like, and what practice areas are we most strong in. And so we formalized 3 different areas of our business, and that really helped us navigate then what would become the weird 2023 volatility within B2B SaaS, which is our primary ICP, a primary market we go after. So it was a really interesting time, but a great transition nonetheless, and another one yet that came again from a relationship of mentorship.
Wow. And what did you feel was your, you had all these experiences at MavenLink running all these customer renewals and up-leveling yourself and upskilling yourself. How did you feel that those skills helped shape your perspective and point of view now as a consultant on the other side?
There's so many scenarios I had been in just in general, as a people leader, as someone who had to oversee global teams building out, Melbourne, Australia, London, all across the US, also the Philippines, and then also leading a team through COVID. We all in the world, but especially within my own team and myself, we were stretched in ways that we never thought had been possible. And specifically in how to keep the lights on in B2B SaaS when some of my team members couldn't even get high-speed internet access while working from home, as though, when they were in the Philippines, there was military enforcing the quarantine for COVID. I was expected to troubleshoot the scenario that was virtually impossible. How do I get people who are used to going to a contact center where they had desktop computers, high-speed internet, air conditioning? Well, now they were home in a third world country. In some cases, there was electricity, maybe running water, but certainly no high-speed internet access, let alone laptops. So trying to figure out how to distribute technology to a team where trade had been shut down. We all know what happened with supply chain in the world and with military tanks driving down the road. It was a hopefully once in a lifetime, in a not to be repeated scenario. All that to say that the logistical aspects of leadership through an unusual time to all the different scenarios in a B2B SaaS model, which was in the professional services automation space. So I work with a lot of services leaders. Also, we're now similar to my ICP, the ideal customers I'm working with today, the main contacts and champions. And so bringing them authentic stories and scenarios that I've personally encountered resonates. I love selling, but I'm not really selling. I'm having a conversation. They tell me a problem they have. I say, here's how I've seen it handled before, whether that be in my own personal career, in-house in SaaS, or whether that be with the 80 to 100 customers we work with every year now. There's insight there. And if it works and there's a mutual connection and fit, I can help. Awesome. And if not, that's okay too. I've met another cool human that I can cheer from the sidelines on in their career.
It all is connected.
It's all connected. You never know. It's a small world. Life is too short. So I tell my kids, like, be a good person and work your butt off. Like, you might not figure it out in the short term, but in the long term, it will all fall into place. And I think that's all we can do. Control what we can control, be a good person and work hard.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there's so much more we could go into there. I feel like customer success as a function is also so naturally lends itself to becoming all connected, because you have to, as you said, be cross-functional and partner with all these other stakeholders in the company, and you're so close to the customer. So I think having that perspective and point of view as both a leader and being in the function that needs to do that is a really unique lens into the world of SaaS and how to create value there. So really great stories, Sabina. I've loved the conversation. I'm going to take us to the next stage of the episode here, which is an audience favorite. It's called the rapid fire questions. And there's some rules here. It's 8 questions. I want you to blurt out the first thing that comes to mind, maximum 3 words. All right. So you got to keep it short, quick thoughts.
Okay.
And we're gonna go through it. All right, here we go.
All right, I'm ready.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, awesome. So what's the best metric of success for CS?
2. I don't know if that doesn't count on my word count. 2. I would say logo renewal rate and ENPS, employee net promoter score.
Ooh, I've not heard that one before. What about the worst metric of success for CS?
NPS.
Yeah, I'm right on that same page with you. Cancel NPS. That's a movement that I am big proponent of. All right, what's the most underrated part of CS?
Kindness and community.
Most overrated part of CS?
Overuse of the word expert.
Nice. Current state of CS?
In transition.
Future of CS?
Renamed.
What's going to be the new name?
We'll figure that out after.
Best CS book or podcast?
Yours, of course.
Let's go. Awesome.
Let's go.
Thank you. And what's one of the best communities? I know there's a lot out there. It might be hard to pick one, but a community for CS leaders that you personally have benefited from immensely.
My favorite is CXO, the Gainsight CXO event annually. And that brings community like no other.
Love it. It's a great one. All right. Well, this podcast is called Future Customer Value. So we ask all of our guests to make one prediction about the future of where we're going. And you made mention of that. So where do you think we're going, Sabina? What's going to come down the pike for us in the industry?
I think there's going to be less clickbait about what customer success is and if it's dead. more focus on the root of protecting and growing revenue. I don't care what we call it. Once you work hard to keep the customers or to get the customers, we're going to keep them. I think tactically, there's going to be more enablement for CSMs on AI, how best, or artificial intelligence, how best to leverage it and what to do with the information when it's at your fingertips in different plays and different scenarios.
That's a really articulate response. And I feel that in many of the companies that we're working with and that we're engaging with, the name of customer success is varied. Customer outcomes, value realization. Heck, we got some salespeople who are owning customers, but the core roots come down to the same thing, which is how do you keep your customers generating the outcomes they need to continue investing in your solution and ultimately growing those. I totally agree. I think there's a big shift coming in terms of how the narratives that are surrounding the role, but the core needs will remain the same and become even more clarified and hopefully more effective and impactful for folks in these roles. Awesome. Well, we're coming to the close here, Sabina. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience, or any PSAs or plugs you'd like to make for folks listening?
I would say it'd be great to connect with you on LinkedIn if you're listening to me. I'm Sabina Pons, and we are regularly publishing a Growth Up newsletter every week through Growth Molecules, where we share key tips, tricks, and also awareness about industry events and communities that can help up-level you in your career.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you'll get a lot of inbound requests for that, given the conversation and how awesome it was. So thank you so much, Sabina, again, for coming on. I really enjoyed this, and we'll have to have a part 2, undoubtedly in the near future.
Would love it. Thank you for having me. You're wonderful to talk to.
Once again, thank you for listening. This episode is brought to you by Foresight. If you're interested in learning more, please email them at info@gainforesight.co. That is info@gainforesight.co. Thank you.